Hello and welcome to the CentOS Dilemma webinar. My name is Robert Sirchia. I am the Director of Technical Community Marketing here at SUSE, and I am joined by a special guest, Claus Wieser and Rick Spencer. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good to be here.
Awesome. And real quick for Claus, you are a Principal Product Manager at Microsoft, is that correct?
Correct, and I'm a dinosaur. I've been here for almost 30 years. If you gives you an idea, when I joined Microsoft in '93, my mail server was a Xenix server. Anybody remembers that arcane OS? So yeah, I've been here a long time in multiple roles: field, product, partner.
And Rick, you are our GM of Business Critical Linux here at SUSE. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Awesome. We'll be answering questions in the chat. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them there. We might not be able to read them on stage today, but we will do our best to answer all of the questions within the chat, and we'll get started. Gentlemen, welcome. So this webinar is about the CentOS Dilemma. But before we start, can you guys elaborate on the strategic partnership between Microsoft and SUSE, and what significance does this alliance hold for both Microsoft and SUSE in driving innovation and industry leadership? Claus?
Sure. We've been partners for a very long time, over a decade now. And it's across multiple product areas, and it's a very broad and deep partnership, everything from Azure tool kernels, specialized SAP GPU instances, flexible pricing, and co-located support. And it's really customer driven. Our customers demand that we work together. We have a lot of joint customers, and they have high expectations of us. I'm mainly on the engineering side, so I deal a lot with our offers in the marketplace, images, ensuring customer experience is good, and we have high quality. So SUSE has been phenomenal to work with, and it takes a lot of different forms. What we do, it's just too numerous to list, but security enhancements, trusted launch. I put a list of a couple things, confidential compute, all those kind of things. We work together, and of course, what we're going to talk about today is the CentOS and the life moment and the dilemma that presents.
Rick?
Yeah, so just to follow up a little bit, I think, when you think about SUSE, you think about our customers, like we focus a lot on customers with compliance needs, certifications, L3 support, that kind of thing, which brings us into the enterprise space a lot. And that's, you see Microsoft and Azure is real strong showing in that space. So I think a lot of customers have an affinity for both companies. So you see that intersection a lot of, and so as Claus mentioned, they kind of expect us to be working together because we both have those kinds of values in common. But I think there's also some other interesting things besides the intersection of customers. I think there's some intersection of values. Like when you think about Azure and SUSE, you think about things like choice and customer focus. So I think there's some natural affinity there also.
In light of the impending changes and the end of support for CentOS, how are enterprises strategizing around this transition with prevailing changes that encounter? What actionable insights can you guys offer to organizations still reliant on CentOS for their operations? This is risk management, cost, vendor lock-in. What does that look like for you guys? I'll start with you, Claus.
Sure. Yeah, I run what's called. We have a large V team, obviously, at Microsoft. It's when it comes to Linux and Linux support, I always say it's actually more than a village. It's a lot of people that are involved. So I run a V team across multiple disciplines, addressing the end of life moment coming up here. And we've put out some high level guidance, right? That's sort of the table stakes for that. But we've also talked to a lot of customers about what are their plans, what are they concerned about, et cetera. And some of the common themes is obviously they're debating, first of all, do they want to stay with the community supported OS, or can they switch? Do they need to stay API compatible? FIPS support is strangely enough pretty high on their list as well. where you have great solutions. And then also the endorsed and support status of the OS and Azure, especially a lot of our APAC customers. That's really high on their list. And then a lot of customers are actually thinking about modernizing. Should I modernize, containerize? Should I use this opportunity? And do I have enough time to do that? We're not that far away from that magical end of life moment. And of course, everybody could use more time, right? They always want more time. And it's not just CentOS, right? I mean, this life cycle management is a huge task for any enterprise, especially in a heterogeneous environment. So we have some other end of life moments that are coterminous with CentOS 6. The Rails stuff. We had some Ubuntu go end of life last year. Not even talking about Windows and SQL, right? That's its whole own beast. So it's super important to have partners that offer solutions and strategies to deal with that, like yourself. So I'd actually like to ask Rick if that's kind of commensurate with what you're hearing when you talk to customers. If you can elaborate a little bit on what you're doing for that customer space.
I will. And I'll try not to hold the mic for too long, but we have a lot of interest in this area, and a lot of it is harmonious with what you're seeing. So we're talking to a lot of customers, existing customers, and a lot of new customers coming in, and just bluntly, they need more time, right? They're just like finding their behind the eight ball, and they're looking at doing migrations, which, as you mentioned, in some cases, they're not like allergic to doing the migrations. They're just risky and they're time consuming. And so they really are looking for like, how can we stay certified? How can we stay supported? How can we stay secure, but have enough time to do this in an organized way. And one of the reasons I've been talking to people, I don't know if you've heard, we have a offering called Liberty, which is not a migration per se. So what we offer is the ability to just keep getting updates, but from SUSE. And we do all the certification on the back end. We do, all the testing to make sure, uh, validate that the patches will apply and everything. And we have a tool which I know a lot of your customers use, Klaus. You're probably familiar with. It's called SUSE Manager, and it's a tool. This kind of goes back to that notion of choice that I was talking about before. It lets you register pretty much any kind of Linux distro that you might be using, and it helps you maintain it and keep it patched, and has a lot of other services associated with it, because that's called SUSE Manager. And probably the easiest thing that you can do if you're finding like yourself behind the eight ball here is to spin up a SUSE Manager instance, add your CentOS or whatever you're worried about is going end of life, and then the SUSE Manager itself can just help you switch to that new Liberty update and give you information, buy you time, tell you like what's in support, what's going to be out of support, keep it updated, and etc. Um, I don't know, make another pitch for SUSE here. When you think about SUSE, like we're really the original enterprise distro. That's like really how we started. So if you're like an enterprise, if you like think about how much we focus on that reliability and predictability for enterprises, um, I think that's another reason a lot of people are really like lighting up when they see the Liberty offering, because it's like, okay, it's a company with a proven track record to help in situations like this with tools that are already in place that we can adopt just right now, and then we can plan in a organized way with a good partner in place. So I'll stop there. Just get off my soapbox. But
Okay, thank you. So, in the wake of the June 30th deadline, what critical factors should customers prioritize when contemplating the continued usage of CentOS? And additionally, do those customers possess the necessary resources to uphold a robust system and security, absent of any type of official support? Klaus?
Sure. I want to kind of echo what Rick just mentioned. It's just security is like the number one focus. I mean, just look at some of the recent events, public events, right? Security is number one, and keeping your estate secure and having robust, policies, role-based access control, all those things. That's just paramount, right? That's nobody gets a free pass on that stuff anymore, right? It's number one, job number one. I think we just had a memo come out here the other day. It's like security is job number one for everybody. That doesn't really matter what role you're in, what you're running. The second thing is, I would say, is you're going to run it. Very few customers, at least that I have talked to, have a homogeneous environment, right? It's just accept the fact that you're going to have a heterogeneous environment, multiple distros, and you have to manage those and bring those under the same security management and policy umbrella, right? Whether that's through acquisitions or things that just legacy that you've brought with you, is you don't get a free pass. You have to manage these things, and that's where it's super important to have the tools and the solutions like Liberty, like your manager, to be able to look at that estate or the fleet, we call it a fleet, holistically, and making sure that there is no holes and gaps. And hey, this thing, it was legacy. We haven't, it's outside of our realm. Is like you don't have that luxury anymore. You have to look at it holistically, and you have to make sure it's secure.
Awesome. Rick?
Yeah, I think just to build a little bit on like what Klaus was saying there, and again, like that, people that I work with in different circumstances, like you really need to accept in your heart that you will have this mixed Linux estate, because otherwise you'll just be burning a lot of calories trying to like converge on something that's going to be very difficult to ultimately converge on. So for instance, if you think about this event right now, like they're probably in a typical enterprise, there are some applications which are really high priority to move. Some are going to be difficult to move, right? So right there, even if you have a homogeneous situation right now, which you probably don't, like you're probably not going to for long. So you really do need to have a strategy for a mixed environment. And we've had actually really good success working with people like that. They like to hear that from their Linux provider, that or from that, like at SUSE, we have a value that we call choice happens, and when we present that to like customers and they realize like we're not going to be antagonistic or difficult to work with because we understand that they're going to be working with mixed environments, that makes us in their view sometimes a bit easier to work with. And that's where like you think about Suma and how that sorry, that's our internal name for SUSE manager, and how that works to like cover all of your choices and everything. But nonetheless, I do think this is like a moment in time where people are kind of pushed to think about what they need to migrate, what do they need to migrate, how are they going to prioritize that. I think don't we have some joint support and services like between the companies that can help people with that?
Yeah, integrated support, and at least the customers that I talk to, this is huge for them. Is their suppliers and vendors collectively working together on their behalf to solve problems, right? It's that they hate to be that man in the middle, or man or woman in the middle, right? And having to coordinate and arbitrate between various different suppliers. So we have our integrated support offerings where our support engineers can freely interact and collaborate on the customer's behalf, and that goes all the way from the front line all the way up to engineering, right? I mean, I sit on almost weekly calls where we go through our list of issues, and whether it's on behalf of the customer or just stuff coming down the pipe. So that kind of joint support, both at the customer support and engineering level, is huge for our customers. I do have a question for Rick, since he's an ex Microsoftie, and we were talking a little bit earlier about career and why you joined SUSE. Is as when you left Microsoft and pursued your career in open source, how did that work out, and how'd you end up with SUSE?
So it's funny, when I got very interested in open source while I was working at Microsoft, and it's just funny to think now, but at the time that was not a good fit with the Microsoft culture, which is hilarious now because like of like all the big companies that I work with, Microsoft is like easily the most um, like open and easy to work with, like from a leader in open source companies now. So it's like always great to go back to campus and meet up with my old friends and everything there. So yeah, I've been working since about 2008. I've been working just purely remotely, purely open source companies, purely working with people distributed around the world. Yeah, turned out to really work out well for me. And SUSE was a no-brainer for me since I had run distros in the past, and um, just their values, their business model, and just it really just harmonized with me. So
Yeah,
it's been great.
I sometimes marvel at, people say, how different companies are. It's like, I actually marvel at how similar we are in a lot of respects, like customer focus, customer choice, working together. And I was actually looking at some old presentations and some old contracts back from the 2010s, and it was still called Windows Azure back then. I don't know if anybody remembers the old red dog days.
Yeah,
We've come a long way since then.
yeah, yeah.
Glad to hear though that we're sort of shifting. As we're a huge user and a huge user. Huge user and a huge contributor to the open source ecosystem, and just having, all I do is Linux, right? Just having multiple teams within Microsoft that do nothing all day but Linux. It's kind
I
of a
mean,
testament to how
if
far
just to
we've
be
come.
perfectly honest, I've always
Yeah,
found recently, just Microsoft to be have a very win-win approach. And like I've worked in several open source companies over the last 10 years or so, and since some transition happened at Microsoft, then just the transparency and the win-win approach is like I'm always really happy to pick up the phone or answer an email when it's from Microsoft now. Which
glad glad to hear. It's exciting times, exciting times. All right. Well, I do have one final thing. What's coming down the pipe? What's on your what's front and center for you and SUSE? Anything exciting coming down the pipe? For here, it's all about security and AI, obviously.
Yeah, like so for sure. I mean, what's front and center, of course, is supporting our enterprise customers, especially the ones, you know, who are using who have large scale Linux estates. But I don't know. I just don't think it would be a legitimate webinar if we didn't discuss our AI strategy a little bit. And that's actually we're really like what we're planning there, what we're working on is really building out of our core values around um, choice and enabling enterprises. So imagine like uh, there's all this pent up demand for LLM driven solutions, but a lot of companies that we work with, they can't run like untrusted code. They can't let their data out of their controlled infrastructure, like so if they have like instances running on Azure, for example, they can't let their data out of those instances into other SaaS providers. So we're uh, putting together an AI platform that has like all the compliance needs. You mentioned FIPS. There's a lot of other compliance needs that a lot of our customers have. So, so imagine it's like compliant, secure, audible out of the box, but then also we're bringing a lot of innovations to it in terms of ease of use and maintenance. So if you're interested in that AI space and you're interested in that enterprise and security space, stay tuned. A lot to come.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so we have a question from the crowd, and it's more so of where we're seeing containers and possibly Kubernetes within this dilemma space around CentOS and its end of life. So I'll start with you, Klaus.
Sure. Yeah. So we definitely see customers moving directly from VM workloads to containers. Usually, you find them when we see, someone their CentOS usage disappears, and we're trying to figure out, where'd it go, what they do, right? And sometimes we'll find that, hey, they just moved straight to containers. Not a Kubernetes expert beyond, I used to run the Arc validation program, which SUSE is a partner of, and Rancher is Arc validated. So I'll probably hand that over to Rick and see what's some of the patterns that we're seeing and solutions we have for folks that want to move directly to containers.
Yeah. Okay. So as Robert knows, I'm very passionate about this, so I'm counting on him to cut my mic if I go on too long. But yeah, so we're seeing a lot of movement in this area. Of course, a lot of people very happy with their VM solutions, very happy running SUSE Linux Enterprise. But then we do see people sort of modernizing applications by maybe creating a build system with a container that runs everything, and we have. And then sometimes they progress from there to like, okay, let's like make something cloud native, and especially with new development, they might go straight to cloud native. So a couple things we've got there. We've got a OS called SUSE Linux Enterprise Micro, which is actually purpose built for these scenarios. It's operates a little differently than a traditional Linux distro. It's transactional, it's immutable, it's really made to like run container runtimes on. So you can take a look at that. It really, if you have gone through the effort of like packaging an application in container, Micro is a really good option for that. Now, if you have compliance needs with those containers, then we super got you covered. We have a set of container images that we build, which right now we have the development containers, but in think a very small number of weeks, we're going to have containers that come with all the FIP certification and everything. So you can use those base container images if you have compliance needs and you're trying to get into that container space. And like one of the really nice things about partnering with SUSE around the container space, though, I think is like um, you don't just get all the compliance and everything. Like as you mentioned, we're with Rancher, we're very deep into Kubernetes space. We have enterprise offerings around Rancher, et cetera. So there's really like no limit to how far you can go if you like start like down that cloud native journey. So uh, yeah, I'll cut myself off because I can go on and on about this. I'm super passionate about container development and container management.
I have another question. Klaus, you mentioned that at Microsoft is everything's security, 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 security. Well, in pursuit of securing CentOS systems, what are you seeing with that, with potential customers with this end of life dilemma around CentOS and security?
Yeah, so I would just say know who you're buying from and why. Right? If you look at these marketplaces, and this is not just our marketplace, this is, all the clouds, is there is just a plethora of solutions and versions to choose from, and some of them are highly legit, and you can use them for the right reason, like Center for Information Security. I think they have images for pretty much any major OS, including ours. There's like a Windows CIS image out there. So know where you're buying stuff from, who it's coming from, what they're doing with it, and then how they're going to support you when you're there, right? I mean, SUSE is tried and true. You guys have been in this game for a long time. And then also, I'd say wherever you go, make sure that your tooling still works, right? The OS is one thing, but there's a lot of process and tooling, whether it's monitoring, securing, um, whatever security standards you need, like make sure that that all works where you're going, right? So I'd love Rick to give some more color commentary there then, but there's a lot that goes around the OS that still needs to work when you come off of CentOS.
Yeah, so that's a couple things that you touched on there. First, like knowing where your software comes from, and I think I don't think there's many companies, if any, that are quite as take that quite as seriously as SUSE. So, like I mentioned, certifications a lot before. Like one of our certifications is EAL, which means like we're certified by like a government entity that we um, review all the code and that we build it in an offline environment, right? So it's like um, the like source of that code very difficult to get it back. Never say never, but very unlikely that it's going to be compromised. And we keep a super close eye on those build servers, and then we support it for a really, really long time. So, especially if you've gone through a lot of effort to get some kind of authority to operate or whatever, you need a company like SUSE who's like, okay, we're with you like long term now. You mentioned tooling also. I just have to say, like, if you think about like all of our repositories, all the tools in those repositories, how we are so careful about protecting the tool chain and everything in those repositories, and the fact that we have 30 years of experience with that, like, all of the collective wisdom of managing Linux is like really at your fingertips in a really secure way, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. So I want to go with some parting thoughts. I'll start with you, Klaus.
All right. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the partnership. Thank you for everything you do. And for all the folks listening out there, go into the marketplace. We have all the things we talked about here are available as deployable offers in the marketplace. We also have some for Liberty in there. So go check it out. Don't wait.
Rick?
Yeah. Also, we have SUSECon coming up. That's a annual SUSE conference. It's at the end of June. It's always a good time, but it's also a great place to come and learn about all the kinds of things that we just talked about, plus more, plus meet with new SUSE customers, long-term SUSE customers. So yeah, check it out.
And not to put any words in your mouth, but there will be some big announcements at SUSECon this year. So
Always.
Can't
Wouldn't
wait.
be SUSECon without some big announcements.
Can't wait.
all right, gentlemen, thank you very much. And we'll see
Thank
everybody
you.
else.